Yo, yo, yo. Let's see if I can flip the camera around. Come on. There we go. What's up, everybody? It's Jace here. Welcome to Cosmic Origins. Doing a live stream for the launch of the National Reconnaissance Office private military classified satellite here at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. So, if you are not familiar, the NRO, which is National Reconnaissance Office, is one of the big five intelligence agencies. So you have like the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, the GRO, and I think there's one more. And so essentially, the NRO operates as the space NSA or the space CIA. They are the intelligence agency for space and space reconnaissance for the military and for the government. And it's an agency that not many people know about. Everybody hears about the CIA and the FBI and the NSA. Even the NSA wasn't fully disclosed until Snowden came out and made it public, right? So the NRO is very similar. It was created, I think, in the 60s. Don't quote me on the exact dates, but you can go check out my old video or look at, the Wikipedia for it. But it was created in like the 60s. Unofficially, and then was accidentally declassified in the 90s when somebody in the government happened to mention it in a report, and then they had to go public with it because once it was mentioned in that report, there's not much you can do to hide it. So since then, since the NRO's inception, they basically have been in charge of sending our spy satellites into space. They create the fleet of the U.S. military spy satellites. And so along with that, they are also, charged with any other kind of space infrastructure and the launching of that space infrastructure. And so the NRO does most of their work with a government contractor called the ULA, which stands for the United Launch Alliance. And the reason why I know all this is because I went to school for aerospace engineering, and I actually met the president of the ULA when we had him to our school. And I was like the president of the Aerospace Society, so I really got a good peek into this world. And so the ULA is a private rocket company that is basically, hey, what's up, Candy Apple, and everybody else on the live stream? Thanks for joining. The ULA is a private company that is essentially, they've been doing what SpaceX was doing before SpaceX came around, and now they are SpaceX's biggest competitor, right? And there's even been conspiracies between ULA trying to sabotage SpaceX on that one SpaceX launch that blew up on the pad, which I'm sure you guys might know about. But anyway, so the ULA does all these contracted launches for the NRO. Now, the thing about the NRO that I really want to bring attention to is, and I'm not going to go into saying whether they're good or bad, whether what their intentions are. If they're white hat or black hat, that's all for your speculation. But what I want to bring attention to is just simply the private, covert, classified industrialization of space. So when we're dealing with an agency like the NRO, they're sending up completely classified payloads that are that are the size of school buses or bigger. So they're using their heaviest rockets. So in this case, they're launching what is called the Delta IV Heavy, which is an extremely heavy rocket. And they're sending up a very, very large piece of technology. And they would like you to believe that's a spy satellite. It could be a spy satellite. Most of the speculation around this particular launch from the mainstream community, they are speculating that it is the final satellite in, let me see if I can, I think I disappeared. Well, I'm back. It's part of that are assuming that it is part of the KH-11 satellite constellation system, which is a constellation of U.S. government spy satellites. That's what the space websites and the technology websites are assuming, but they say in these articles that they don't know for sure if that's what it is because these payloads are completely classified. And it's just something that I think we need to bring more awareness to in general is knowing what we're putting up into space. Do we really know as a people what our government and what our intelligence agencies, military intelligence agencies are putting up into space? I mean, the NRO launches up to like a rocket a month sometimes. that's a lot of infrastructure when you're talking about like, 100+ missions. So just some weird stuff there. And then another weird thing about the NRO is their mission patches. Now, if you just go to like Wikipedia and just type in NRO or NRO mission patches, and it'll come up, or Google Images or whatever. But the NRO has some very, very peculiar mission patches, and they all seem to have some kind of occult significance. Now, I've talked to people that say, well, this is just the engineers and the designers there having fun with their mission patches and making them interesting. But if you really look at these, especially with the knowledge of the occult elite and how these occult elite operate with putting stuff in very plain sight, these mission patches seem to be very blatant, like Illuminati symbolism. I mean, literally on a couple of them, you have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on top of it. Like in a couple, more than one mission patch. Another one is the octopus, which a lot of people refer to as Yaldabaoth. A giant octopus putting its hands or its tentacles around the earth, and it says in Latin on the bottom, "Nothing is beyond our reach." Another one is a giant dragon curling up the earth in its claws and saying something similar. The NRO's, their primary mission patch and their slogan for the company is "We own the night," and it's an owl, right? And so if you look at the occult significance of the owl in context of the global elite and how the owl, Moloch, that deity, which is the deity of child sacrifice, that theme comes up over and over again, right? So I'm not necessarily trying to make a direct correlation saying these people are, doing anything crazy like that. But when you connect these different occult symbols from different parts of, world elite, social elite, military intelligence, all that kind of stuff, there's definitely this pattern that evolves. So again, I think the biggest thing that we need to question regarding these classified launches is what is going into space, because there is so much infrastructure on a very public level that is being launched into space. And now what I'm realizing from this launch is they're starting to advertise it, which is a little weird. So I even had one of my old high school teachers on Facebook make a post about this launch and say something along the lines of, the radio today that there's a classified spy satellite being launched by the government. And he was like, that's a little weird, don't you think, that they're announcing on the radio that the government's launching a spy satellite? So I've noticed with this launch that very, very much pushing advertising it, right? Advertising the classified military satellite launch, right? So what would be the reasoning that? Well, surface level, the first kind of obvious reason would be propaganda, right? So just like, what's up, Garrett, and everybody else here? Thanks for joining. What we're talking about is like the propaganda, right? So when we look at other world powers like Russia, China, a lot of the Asian countries, they'll have like parades and that kind of stuff to celebrate their newest nuclear missile or their newest piece of military technology. So this could be a form of that, right? But in a kind of psyop-y way, like get people on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere interested in government satellite launches, get them to come out and watch. If you'll look here, I'll flip the camera around. There's like a lot of people that have come here, that have gathered to so it's definitely starting to gain this popular culture attraction when it comes to these government launches, right? What's up, Patricia? So that would be kind of the surface level, right? That it's a form of propaganda, and it's to increase nationalism and increase confidence in our government and blah, blah, blah. But still keeping us ignorant of what's actually going into space the whole time, continuously saying, oh, it's probably spy satellites, right? We just have to assume they're spy satellites, not that they're weapons or domestic spy satellites or anything like that. But on a deeper level, what could be happening here in context of QAnon and the deep state and the white hats that we know are operating within the deep state, military intelligence that is working to combat people that have committed these terrible crimes within our government. What we could be looking at is a a white hat takeover of this agency that is now pushing for more public disclosures, right? So let me explain what I mean by that. So in the context of Q, we know that the white hats, the alliance that is working against the deep state with this covert war, have taken out the primary reconnaissance and spy satellites and networking satellites used by the deep state. And those were known as Big Bird. There was, what were the other ones? Snow White, Corona. Those were a couple. And so what that means is that we're looking at a big shift in who owns and operates and makes the decisions behind these military intelligence agencies. And if we are at where Q alludes to where we're at with the white hat takeover of these agencies, and we look at the way that the NRO has evolved and the mission patches that have evolved over time, it almost seems to tell this story. Now, I did an analysis of this in a video, like maybe 7 videos back or something on my channel about the NRO. You can go watch that, and I go into more detail. But the mission patches almost seem to tell this story in combination with other military intelligence insiders, whistleblowers that have spoken out, that that there could have been a white hat takeover somewhere around, I think it was mission number 70 of the NRO launches. And in that mission patch, where it seems like there was a clear switch in the theme and tone of these mission patches, they went from being very dark and sinister and very evil feeling, like I was saying, the octopus and the dragons like taking over the world, and like literally saying like some like just some gnarly stuff in Latin, to all of a sudden there was a mission patch where it showed a knight dressed in white slaying a dragon. And I don't remember what the word said, but it was something along the lines of like taking something back, or it was alluding to that there was a shift. And after that, the mission patches have all been pretty light in their tone. They don't look as sinister. So that could allude to that there was some kind of switch going on here, in which case what we're seeing with these public demonstrations and this advertisement of these launches could be a push for the disclosure of what's actually going on here, right? So that the more, either way, it's working toward that in general, right? It's working towards transparency. The more that people are aware that we have thousands and thousands of pounds of infrastructure going into space every month, classified by our military intelligence organizations, the more that people really start to let that sink in and think, wow, like literally we could have more than a dozen space stations in infrastructure up there based on the number of military satellites that have been launched by the NRO in secret, you know, before it was even made public. Now that it's public, they're like flipping the switches and like trying to really push it and make it like accepted and a part of pop culture and a fun thing to do, to go watch rocket launches, which I agree, it is pretty fun. Like there's a reason why we're here right now, and hopefully within a few minutes this thing will actually launch. It's 11:07 right now, so the launch window opened 2 minutes ago. So literally any second now we could be getting this launch. T-minus 3 minutes is what Garrett is saying. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm not able to go check the live stream because it'll mess up my live stream. Oh no. So about 3 minutes here, but I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say regarding this launch. Again, I would suggest you go check out my old video about the NRO, because I really go into detail and I bring up the resources and the links and everything. But either way, I think the transparency ultimately is good for the public, right? Like the more we know what we're actually putting into space, the better for everybody, you know? The more transparency, the better. So.
And it's fun.
And it's fun,
and
yes.
Kids can dream again.
Yes, and it's fun to go see a rocket launch. So, another thing about Vandenberg that we know from multiple whistleblowers and insiders who have worked here is that Vandenberg is one of the big, I guess you could say, secret space program, like spaceports, and also home to most likely a deep underground military base. So as we know from multiple whistleblowers, the United States military bases are full of what they call DUMBs, deep underground military bases. So essentially underground cities, but picture a military base. You know, you have the surface level one, and then maybe a mile or even more, according to some, beneath the ground, you have more. You know, you have another military base, but one that's completely private and not viewable by the public or known to the public. So Vandenberg is supposed to be one of those places that has a lot of this classified, covert activity. And there's been a lot of people. My friend Alex McDougall has seen a triangle craft here, and he's pretty skeptical about that kind of stuff, I would say. So, and there's been a lot of people that have had film footages and just lots of crazy stuff about like UFOs and other stuff in this area. But I would say that they're mostly military and not ET, because when you're dealing with an Air Force base like this, and as we know, the Air Force is the Air Force and the Navy are the agencies most involved in the space industrialization, right? So we're at about a little less than a minute here for the launch. I'm gonna flip the camera around and walk outside. I think that's the base right there. Liftoff. Oh, there it is. Oh. The NRO 71 launched by the Delta IV Heavy.
Yo, that's crazy. Get over here.
Here comes the noise.
So.
Oh, here comes the sound.
Oh my. I can't barely get.
Wow.
Yo, I need to get this on my phone. What is happening?
Wow. Oh, it's so loud.
It is very loud. That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, if you ever have the chance to see a rocket launch, I highly, highly recommend. It's pretty spectacular. So much power and energy behind that. Wow.
Chemicals. Soak it in.
It's pretty cool because I've only seen rocket launches at night before, and they generally light up the whole sky. I've never seen one during the day.
There it goes.
Wow. Yeah, shout out to my friend Garrett, the vacation.
That's cool.
There it is,
Bye.
just a little tiny dot.
The bugs are like, what's happening?
All right, sweet, you guys, thanks for joining us. I will hopefully be putting up a new video or a couple within the next, or pretty soon, about the Schumann resonance and with our consciousness and the planet and everything